Hello, I'm the Grub Street vlogger and I've already filmed this video and uploaded it and deleted it all by accident and it all went wrong. So here goes again. I'm at my parents' house. I don't have the books with me, but I can talk about what I read in July. I started off with The Amazing Adventures of Mary Seacole in Various Countries, Various Lands. I'm glad that the book has this sort of Gulliver's Travels type intro to it. I like that title. And it was written by Mary Seacole, who was a woman who is famous for going to the Crimea and setting up the British Hotel, which was a sort of shop, club, pub, hospital. And she went right to the front lines, unlike sort of Florence Nightingale in Scutari. And she went and helped people, made them better. She did a lot of fever cures and plague cures and things like that because she was from Jamaica and had a good background in curing fevers and things. And she was really, really funny. I really liked her. You got a real sense of who she was. This sort of very bolshy, very opinionated person. She's not very fond of Americans, but that's mainly because they still have slaves. And when she meets Americans outside of America, they look down on her. She loves British people, though her dad is Scottish, so she sees herself as partly British. And she just says what she thinks. I found her very, very amusing. I'll try and find a couple of good quotes from her. So they got this terrible place with no roof, it's shack. And she says, this charming residence was very openly situated and very well ventilated. And I like that. I thought that was funny. She talks about how the French soldiers with the big pantaloons, the zouaves, were very good at robbing things because those big pantaloons make a great way of getting your ill-gotten gains and running off. She talks about all the funny things and the silly things and all the thieving that happened at the Crimea. And she spends quite a lot of time justifying herself, really. You get the impression that some people saying, well, she wasn't all that good because she was doing it for money. But she came back with no money. It wasn't a money-making exercise in the end. And she wrote the book for money and for support. And with that, she then set up a massage career in which she was massaging princesses royal. So she did all right, and she died with lots of money. And she had a really interesting, decent life. But she sounds like, I think Florence Nightingale was the more historically influential of the two. There's often this kind of tussle between them, who should they deserve to be equally well known. And Florence Nightingale did more for people, but old Mary Seacole, she was way more fun to hang out with, and the book proved it. So that was my first book of July. My second book of July was called The Caravaners and was by Elizabeth von Arnim. And it was all about two people going on a caravan trip. And it was narrated by Baron Otto, this German who has no sense of humour and is utterly, utterly, utterly terrible. He's a terrible, terrible person. He's so bad that the month-long caravan trip ends in a week just to avoid him. But it's narrated by him. And he doesn't realise how terrible he is. And so the big joke of the book is he's wandering around going, it's funny how they're always busy whenever I come. Or, I told a hilarious joke to them, but they didn't laugh. Why don't people laugh when I laugh? I went and told them that they should go and peel the potatoes rather than me because, I'm more of a philosopher and I'm more about thinking rather than doing. And so they should do things because the difference between thinking and doing is, doing makes you more hot. And so he's this really horrible person, and it's clear how horrible he is through the text, and you have to read through the lines to get there. It's very good. Right, next one is called A Visit from Voltaire. Weird one, this. Sells itself as a novel. Says it's all about this woman who's moved to Switzerland, and Voltaire keeps popping over and they have a chat. It's not, though, because the author has the same name as the narrator in the text, the same children, her husband has the same name, has the same job, they moved to the same place. She also has the same background in being a foreign correspondent in Hong Kong. Essentially, it's a diary. It's a diary of how she's moved to Switzerland and hates it, with a Voltaire Wikipedia thrown in. And it shouldn't work at all. But it's actually fairly interesting. It's not bad. You see, the structure that it has, and it certainly hasn't got a plot or anything, but the structure that it has is it goes through Voltaire's life, and then things in her life reflect that. So early on in Voltaire's life, he went to prison a lot. So her kid is accused of a crime and is questioned by the town council. Or Voltaire goes to England. So all of a sudden she has a friend in England, she goes to England. And that's it, really. And each chapter has a theme, and I think the idea is kind of self-help. I'm not really sure. The only way I can explain this book is she's moved to Switzerland. She's feeling very lonely and out of place, and she's imagining Voltaire chatting with her. That's what it feels like. That's how I imagine this book started. There's no explanation of why Voltaire, even. I thought it would be interesting. I thought it would be like a villager who thinks he's Voltaire or something like that. No, it's just Voltaire's ghost. He's just hanging out. Yeah, very strange book, but not too terrible. So the next book I read was... It's getting the order right, isn't it? The Boneless Mercies. Now this is set in a faraway land. Yeah, it's a fantasy book. They are the divorce people. When they die, they go to Valhalla. They worship the gods Obin and Nor. And I was surprised the trickster god Pokey didn't turn up. So yeah, the world building was rubbish. The character building wasn't great, and the plot was average. So it doesn't sound very highly recommended. But one good thing about the Boneless Mercies, and I don't even know why they're called Boneless Mercies. Their job was to go around euthanizing people. They're a bunch of women who wear black capes and cut people's throats for money. But the people asked to have their throats cut. You'd be amazed. There's like 6 or 7 people per village all saying, please kill me. So this place is obviously not a very nice place to live. But they decided to ditch this because it's depressing. And they go off to hunt monsters instead. The two really good bits were, there's a bit where they pass through a marsh, and in the marsh there's a witch called the Cut Queen. And she's a 12-year-old girl who flagellates herself, and through that pain connects with the marsh goddess and has witchy powers. And that was creepy and horrible, and she was kind of sympathetic as well. You felt sorry for her, and you wanted... Yeah, she was a baddie, and she's obviously going to be the baddie of sequels if there are sequels. And it was, yeah, she was good. And I liked it when they got to the monster was less monstrous. That was a nice little take on it. But overall, very average, the Boneless Mercies. Well, the next thing I read after the Boneless Mercies was called Folk. And Folk was the best book of July. It's a collection of short stories, sort of fairy tales and folk tales, made up ones, about a place called Neverwhen? Not Neverwhere. Neverness. An island, imagine an island called Neverness. And it's a very harsh island. It's lots of fishing and lots of close to the land stuff. And each chapter is a folk tale or a fairy tale set there, and it's all about this one generation. So they're children in the first tale, and they're old people in the last tale, and they're not quite weaved together to create a story, but it's like it's like looking through a piece of paper and then more pinpricks come through it and you see more beyond it. You can put it all together to create this very interesting place. It's a bit Summer Isle-y, a little bit Wicker Man. Especially because in the first story, a young boy gets burnt to death in a prickle bush. So, yeah, almost directly Summer Isle there. There are references to other myths. There's a sort of a Selkie element, the Seal people. There are the Trois Swans, if you know that song, about a sister who kills another sister and then sees the body coming down and goes, oh, look, it looks like a swan. And yes, there's lots of influences. But it's really good. There's a real texture to it. You can smell it and taste it and feel the grit and the close to nature element. And it's a really interesting world that's built up through this. Though what we don't have is a through plot or through characters. But there was enough little plots to create this exciting world, and I really liked Folk. Folk was really, really good. Now, the next book I read was a joke book called Silly Jokes. They were not silly jokes; they were bad jokes. In fact, some of them were so bad they needed parentheses to explain what the joke was supposed to be. That's a very bad joke. Here's the worst joke in the book. What did Hannibal say when he saw the elephants? Oh, look, gooseberries. And then it says in brackets, Hannibal was colourblind. Still don't get that joke. A very bad joke book, but a very, very good book to annoy your friends with. The very last thing I read this month was An Entertainment for Angels, which is a history of electricity in the Enlightenment age. What it focuses on and what made it really interesting was how the theory came after the showing. So some people found some things that were, oh, this is interesting, this electrical thing. And they made machines and they played with it. And showmen came and did little shows with it and saw what they could do. They could attract things and make sparks and what have you. And then theorists had to come and say, oh, right, well, what I think is happening here is... and so electrical science was part showmanship and charlatanism and part science, and it was really interesting. And that was what the book was, and it was very good. However, it was pretending to be longer than it was, because it was on massively thick paper with very big writing. But it was a very good book, and that was everything I read. I was hoping to have finished, I left it downstairs, hoping to have finished Pride and Prejudice, but I'm about 40 pages out, so I'll talk about that next month, which is a shame, because I wanted to talk about it at the same time my sister talks about it on her video, but hey-ho, that's how it goes, as it goes when I deleted this video the first time, so hey, have a lovely month.